All right, good afternoon. Welcome to council. First item will be adoption of the agenda. And that is with the one late item included already. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we have a number of delegations this evening. First of all, we have the gentleman here from the Legion. No?
He's right in the back.
John Pollard, there he is. I was looking for a guy in a blazer. John, you're up. Okay. To the podium, please, and make your presentation.
Put me under the gun right away.
Yeah. On the clock. You have 10 minutes for your presentation. So.
Okay. Okay, then I won't read the whole.
If you submitted it to us, we've read it. So.
Okay, this presentation is to promote the application before council of the Comox Legion's Branch 160 transition from primary liquor club license to primary liquor. If you find me fumbling, I had a mini stroke a couple weeks ago, and some things just don't work quite perfect, but I'll make it.
All right.
I'd like to start by thanking the Comox Town Council for allowing me to make this short presentation. To begin, our mission is to serve veterans, which includes serving members of the military and the RCMP, their families, to promote remembrance and to serve our community and our country. The reason for the Legion is applying for the transition for liquor primary club license to liquor primary license is to generate enough funds to keep our doors open. Our revenue is not increasing, however, the expenses are. More funds will mean more funds to donate to veterans and local charities. Over the past 79 years, the Comox Legion has made many efforts to support the town of Comox. Our members are very proud of the community, a positive progression of the town since 1939. This Legion branch and Ladies facility contributed over $46,000 to the veterans, seniors, and local organizations in 2017. An effort to reorient the Legion into a profitable model that is relevant to our communities and customers will involve re-educating the public in the concept of Legions as beer halls for old people. Sure, you've thought of that. The removal of the club endorsement on the liquor license will permit the public to freely come into the Legion and will give the branch an opportunity to show those new customers and potential members just what Legions do in the community, the province, and the country. The fact that membership is a not-for-profit society and not just a lounge will go a long way into convincing people to take up our new memberships. Benefits to the community. It is expected that full-time employment within will increase. By how much, not yet determined. It will create a gathering facility for the public, charitable organizations, including meetings, rally start points, lectures, events, banquets, weddings, and other celebrations with far less restriction and permit requirements. Our facility has a distinct military-style atmosphere. If you've been there, I'm sure you know. Giving the public a choice of socializing, holding meeting, facilitating the lounge in the hall. The liquor primary license will provide an added amenity for liquor service to the public, and including a wide variety of events such as fundraisers, seasonal parties, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day levy, Other events, Halloween parties, corporate meeting receptions, functions, ceremonies, sporting events like dart, pool, golf, celebration of life, beat draws, 50-50 draws, musical entertainment, live bands and DJs, plus projector to screen, and karaoke card games. The Legion will continue to provide space for the many charitable organizations, plus not-for-profit. For example, cadets, minor sports, community fitness groups. Food service, we have applied to retain our family food service. We have a full and commercial kitchen on site. Food is and will be available during hours in the form of light meals such as hot dogs, hot sandwiches. We host regular special steak nights and burger nights. And as time goes on, we plan to offer full pub style meals. Impact of noise. This facility has been operating in this location with a liquor primary club license since the start, with no recollection of noise complaint. We don't anticipate that we will change when we change our license. In the reference of Planning Department, staff report to Council regarding the bicycle parking requirement. We would like for your consideration in approval of a delay in implementation of the Class 1 and 2 facilities. So we may, 1, design locations for both facilities in the branch, 2, estimate cost and corporate indoor time. That's quite important to us because we don't have a lot of money. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thanks, John. Okay, questions from members of council at this juncture? No, and as you know, what we do is we then consider a report from the planner as to next steps in terms of getting public consultation on this application. So we'll deal with that shortly.
Do you want this at all?
You can pass that through to our planner here, as an acting administrator, and we'll make sure this gets on record. Okay. All right, so the next delegation also relates to the liquor license application. That's Jason Walker of Land and Sea Brewing Company. Welcome. Again, you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Yes.
You got something next?
Mayor, Council, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here. Just want to briefly introduce you to Land and Sea Brewing Company. Been working on this for about 14 months, I guess, trying to bring some fresh beer fresh food to the town of Comox. Located at 2040 Guthrie Road, which is just off the corner of Anderton. And when I first, this is kind of the second location that we keyed in on. And when I found this one, I actually went to the Comox Museum and wanted to see what was here sort of historically and, what happened at that site. And sure enough, there's a 1980s aerial map, and it showed this building on site. And I asked the lady there at the archives what used to be there, and she's like, I don't know, I'll look into it. And like a day and a half later, this gentleman phoned me, and he's like, him and his lads, they go like a coffee clutch, and they go and they meet once a week, and they were going to get to the bottom of this. So a couple days later, they basically sent me some photos, and it's pretty close to where the old Loft Cabaret used to be. So I don't know if anyone remembers those days. And they they picked it up, and so they went to the record, the Comox Valley Record, the newspaper, for me, and got these archive photos of the move, because I guess it took 2 days to move this building down to where the current Chances Casino was in Courtenay, where it continued to successfully operate as a cabaret. So a little bit of a sidetrack, but I've got some friends that grew up going to the Loft in town, and we're going to do our best to honor it in some way, shape, or form once we get going. This is the building as it currently stands. It used to be modern windows and doors. Ominously, you look straight down the road, and Surgeon Brewing is right there, and that is a daily reminder of what we need to manage our risk and to be straight. It's 3,200 square feet. From a planning perspective, when this is really, it's a mix of manufacturing, it's a mix of retail, we'll have a restaurant. So why am I doing this? My wife asked me that today. And it's really to provide local residents with a place to gather, right? It's a place to share ideas, it's a place to share conversation, to share laughter, local food, just hang out, right? It's informal, there's no reservations when you walk in the door. We're going to have a big community table that people can, meet at and have meetings and celebrate events. So it's really for local people. I mean, the whole model is about, pedaling there and walking there, and I have people drop by almost every day. I'm on site. I go to the rental place. I go to pay my property taxes. Everywhere I go, it's like, so what's going on? So it's just a place for town residents to gather and to celebrate where we live. And when I say that, it's because we're very rich in agricultural abundance. So we're doing allegiances with local producers, and there's so much art, and we really want to do a good job of tying that in, as well with the history of the town of Comox, right, with the marina and ag and forestry. So we want it just to be a fun place where everyone's welcome, and you can enjoy fresh, hopefully delicious food and beverages. So what are the impacts on the town? Well, there's going to be employment. I have people coming by quite often, dropping off resumes already. Again, I'm calling that area West Comox right now, so if it sticks, you heard it here first, we'll see. But we'd like to keep it, pedestrian. There's a bike route out front. We'd like to increase foot traffic around there. I think there's some great opportunities for other retail just down Guthrie in that Panago Plaza. So, maybe we can bring some more like-minded businesses to that area. And to create synergy and local partnerships with businesses. I'm talking to one of the bike stores in town, and we're going to try to do something that's fun to promote people to pedal to land and sea, and just partnerships with suppliers that are local and artists and whatnot. So it's about building the local economy as well. And that's it, but I would like to say thank you to the Town of Comox staff that have helped us get to this point. Gail and Marvin, I know it's not an easy task, but it's 14 months later. I've been bugging people, and I'm here, so I'm sure it's not, you don't get a lot of thank yous, but thank you. So,
All right. Thank you, Jason, for the presentation. Any questions from members of the council? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
Just to make a comment that, it's nice that you've taken that area of town and done something with it, and, to help see the changes that your establishment will bring to that area, and spreading it around instead of all just downtown. So I think that's a great catchment area, because I live in the area. But it's good, and good luck with it. Thank you. Yeah.
Any further questions from members of the council? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. So we'll move on to the next delegation, which is also related to the liquor license application, New Tradition Brewing, Pat Savard. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for seeing me, and I guess it's a pretty interesting day. One brewery and another brewery, and here we go.
Right, child?
Yeah, so I'm newer to the Comox Valley area. My wife and I have been wanting to move here for a while, and just recently figured out how to make it work. We've been talking with David Kuhn since August, and I've been on and off with communications with Gail since then as well from the town, and just trying to basically work out all our details, get everything together, and make sure we can make it happen. So we'll be going, our plan is, well, I guess, a little bit about me and my background. So my dad was a brewer. My great-grandfather was a gin maker during the Prohibition, under wraps kind of thing. Now I'm telling the whole town, but here we go. So New Tradition Brewing basically comes from family brewing, but this generation is planning by going by the rules and doing things by the book. We've learned from our predecessors, but we're also making our own traditions. It's just a button here. I'm not very tech savvy. I think I just wrote it. Oh, there we go. So basically our benefits for the town, much similar to Jason's. We plan on having a family-friendly atmosphere in the downtown. There's no options at the moment for families to go and have drinks into the evening. It's fairly quiet, but I'm sure it'll still manage to be a nice, quiet downtown Comox even once we go in. And we plan on having lots of varieties of beers. Like to keep things rotating as much as possible. Ciders, wine, and other beverages as allowed by the liquor board. Food as well. Basically, just good atmosphere. David's working with us to have a patio as well, so that should be quite nice. We plan on keeping with the look of the mall and tying ourselves in nicely with our own interior decor, that'll be more our own uniqueness. Yeah, we'd like to be basically involved with the community as much as we can. Hopefully, I get this button right this time. Oh, thanks. So I don't know if this is necessary, but basically, when it comes to impact, I just thought I'd spend like a minute basically explaining the brewing details. So basically, we're going to take grains. Oh yeah, that's where this thing works. No, it doesn't. Never mind. So we're going to take grains. We put them into a mash tun, where basically it's like making tea. We're extracting the sugars out of the grains, and then rinsing them into a kettle, where we then boil at hops. And from there, we transfer over to a fermenter, where it's going to sit for anywhere from 1 week to 3 weeks or more, depending on the beer style. Filtration is something that down the road we may want to do. Off the bat, we don't plan on it. Also, you lose a lot of flavors in filtration, so it's not often something you want to do. And then we go to a bright beer tank, where the beer gets carbonated, cleaned up, and after that, packaged. And in this process, basically, we're being very clean as we go. We plan on having a... Can you hit the button for me, Clive? Thanks. So we plan on putting a drain waste interceptor in, which is a crucial element for any solids which may accidentally go down, also in terms of sediments and things like that. And we'll be balancing out, our pH, so we're not causing harm to the city pipes. Yeah, basically there's a lot of processes that we have to be responsible with, but plan on doing so. And so this is our location at the Comox Center Mall. We're taking over CRU 11 and 12, and I believe David's changing it to CRU 11, part of the dentist space and part of the concourse area to the inside, giving us around 3,000 square feet, fairly close to, with a little patio area outside, so people can have a view of the mountains while sitting down, and a nice short walk from the marina. You mind, Clive? Thank you. Oh, I guess it didn't load up. Well, I had our floor plans on there, which... Certainly.
So basically, you're in where the HMCSL Verde was.
The clothing store that just went out.
Okay.
So basically on the corner, like Dollarama's around the side to the north, and then we're just basically at the east entrance.
Southeast, okay.
Sorry, Clive. So just keep nodding. Okay, just all the way through, and it's the last one. The next one. There it is. Yeah, so this is what we plan on doing. We'd like to have 110 capacity. That's including staff, so we'll be around about 105 in terms 105, 106 for our capacity, with entrances to the mall, entrances to the outside, and right at the parking. So basically, this is where the brand new building is. Comox Ave is right here. Dollarama is the neighbor just to the corner there, just to give you an aspect of where we're at. And yeah, I think that's what I've got for you today. But
Any
thank you for
questions from
bringing.
members of council in terms of your application? Of course, this is just to go initiate the public process.
100%.
Councillor McKinnon.
Just a curiosity question, if I may. You mentioned your family's background there, and it's most interesting. Personal background in running a similar type establishment.
Mm-hmm.
You want to touch on that, if there is any background there?
In my family, no. Well, actually, yeah. My cousin, who's going to be doing our tasting room management, was working with Flying Monkeys in Ontario, Barnstormer as well, doing a lot of their sales and a lot of their management. I'm a contractor. For me, the construction aspect of things is going to be our saving grace a little bit. My partner is more in finance, and so we'll be hiring a bit of brewing assistance for sure. But I would like to get my hands in the grain as well, as I've been doing it my whole life. Thank you. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you again for your presentation, and
Thank
good luck
you.
with the rest of it. So we'll be dealing with those applications in a little bit on our agenda. There is One more delegation, it's a presentation from our very own Al Fraser, Park Superintendent, on the much anticipated wayfinding program. Update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, thanks for providing me the opportunity to give you an overview on what I think is a fairly exciting project. It's been a long time coming, and it's very important, and will be a very important aspect of our community, especially for our visiting public, and those not as familiar as we all are with our community. So it's a pretty heavy document. There's a lot of content, and we'll clip through it fairly quickly, but there will be plenty of time in future to delve a little bit deeper into it, and we'll be sure to provide Mayor and Council with the full package to glean through at your convenience. So we'll just keep clipping through. Next one, please, Clive. Next one. And we'll stop here for a minute on the program overview. So just to go right back to the very beginning, wayfinding means just that. It means a way of finding one's self around a community, a place. You have to forgive me, I don't have my glasses with me. And there's some highlights contained in this program overview, a couple that I'd just like to point out. One being, or key components being that we are a growing community, and our field of focus needs to be concentrated, I think, personally, working from the downtown core out, and then keying in on either or on other sectors, much as Councillor Arnott commented on earlier, with looking up around the quality foods areas, another potential node of interest. And one thing I want to point out as well is that this program is very easily expandable. So whomever takes the reins when there's future development trends that come to light, those areas can also be looked at with a view to incorporate them into the wayfinding system as well. Key points of interest, the wayfinding program should ultimately promote more logical and functional access and movement within the town. That's the whole objective to this, to give people ease and assurance when they're standing in front of a historic building or a point of interest such as the museum and archives, that they can clearly feel comfortable in knowing that they can easily be guided to the next point of interest. And the whole objective here is to keep boots on the ground and people in our community for longer periods of time. Next one, please. So the interaction and audience, we have three categories for the signs that we're looking at employing throughout the program. Identification of landmarks and key features. Then we go into the directional signage. Much, traditionally you see the arrows and on posts with either times or kilometers in terms of destination between point and point. And then the interpretive signs, which will we build upon those and continue to build upon those as we promote and develop and nurture our key points of interest. Things that come to light are the Brooklyn Creek, Mac Lang, Baybrook. There are a number of other places that we'll be looking at in terms of interpretive signs. Marine history. We've been working in concert with members of the Museum and Archives to develop interpretive signs that are included in this presentation, but they're mock-ups with accurate content, and if you like them, we'll use them, and if you don't, we'll tweak them. So there's flexibility built into this. Next one, Clive, please. So signage categories and purpose. I'll just go through them very quickly. Location identifier, that's the one on the left. Park identifier, because we do have some parks that we would like to feature in this exercise. Primarily due to the fact that we have active networks of walking trails contained in those park systems, and those are trails that we really want to actively promote. We have the primary map sign, which is the third one in, and forgive me, they're a little hard to see, but when you receive the full presentation packages, you'll be able to more easily feel comfortable in going through and navigating the information. So the primary is just that. It will be a device to direct and inform about destination locations, in addition to making marking the current location. And the secondary map signs will direct and inform about destination locations that are a little further afield. Next one, please. Again, the one on the left is more the traditional directional post signage. These are based on Google Map information, so the distance markers are actually in minutes on foot. Most of what we're seeing here is designed for pedestrian. And then key destination markers will be more well suited for those either on foot, bicycle, or other modes of transportation. The directional wall sign, which is next to the post, is just that. It's a wall marker indicator that's wall mounted on a building, a municipal building or private building, if we have private entities that want to buy into the program, such as our local business community. Those will give directions to key locations that are more proximal to where the individual is standing at that time. Then we get into the interpretive signs. That's the traditional style where you can see the profile where you walk up and it's on a bias such as this, and you can easily read it and interpret the feature or point of interest in front of you. And then the interpretive sign V on the far right is what we call the rail-mounted interpretive device. We used a mock-up of some of the salmon species that return to our riverways. And in saying that, it can be easily employed on some of our bevel-edged guardrails and such on our bridge systems. So that's a very, very interesting design feature that I think would be well received by the public. Next one, please. The placement matrix, as I had alluded to earlier, we're looking at focusing our first field of focus on the downtown core, incorporating things such as sports and recreation with the recreation center, some of the amenities contained in that area. Hiking and recreation, which basically encapsulates a good portion of the Brooklyn Creek Greenway. Sports and recreation, a little closer to the downtown core, which encapsulates Comox Golf Club, Anderton Park tennis facilities, etc. History and recreation, again, opportunities a little further afield outside of town. Those relate more to, again, to Mount Lang, to Baybrook, and some of the other recreational opportunities, whether it be cycling or passive recreation such as walking, hiking. The marine recreation and walking bubble right there on the waterfront, pretty self-explanatory, why we consider that a very key component of this whole exercise. And of course we have a second node a little further afield that says downtown on the left, and that takes in some of the areas in around the Avenue Bistro and areas where we hope in future to move or expand some of our could be commercial related activities. Next one, please. Next one, please. Just a photo of Filbert Park, the Enchanted Pergola, and keep going. Design elements. So in terms of colors, the identity, signage identity colors that we're keen off of are our traditional blues. We are sort of married to that, and it's not to say that we're not pulling other colors in, because we are using supporting colors from the other color palette to accentuate some of those. Next one, please. Typography, I'm not going to get too much in this. It's standard recognized typography that's used in these exercises. These are examples. The directional elements, these arrows are kind of unique to this exercise. The inset center of the triangle is the direction, and like I said, it's kind of unique and it's interesting when you see it. It's different. It's a nice, I think, a nice design flair. Next one, please. Typical pictograms, which we include. The top block are kind of standard pictograms, non-regulatory, but show the features and a pictogram setting, and then we have the regulatory ones on the bottom. Next one, please. Mapping the downtown area. We don't want to make these maps too overly busy. They have to be readable and navigable. So we can't really fluff them up too much, given, we also have spatial considerations, and we need to keep it fairly generic because things do change rapidly. So although I had mentioned earlier that this is an expandable program, there are limitations therein that we have to be mindful of. Next one, please. Regional map. So we have cues out there on some of the signs that have, again, they're not overly loaded with information, but they do give clear direction to key features like the airport, Kai Bay, Point Homes, KFN, City of Courtenay, of course, and D&D, etc., Goose Spit, Balmoral Beach. Next one, please. Branding usage. So we were speaking early with members of the BIA about who are we, what is our brand, and what would we like to be. I mean, we are known as Comox by the Sea, and from a business perspective, the Comox by the Sea identifier, logo, label, primary brand, is just that. And we felt fairly strongly about using that as our primary brand in terms of the signage. And then our signature brand is our Town of Comox traditional logo. Both are contained on all of the signs. They're just displayed in different areas. Next one, please. Next one. So now we're getting into the technical details of how these signs are placed. And we can just steadily go through these, Clive, please. Location identifiers. So they're just that. These are to identify location, destinations, historic landmarks, public buildings. Park identifier, just that. These are some of our high-profile parks. Primary sign maps and key locations that will be able to guide us to the different areas. Secondary map is the regional mapping and other wayfinding. Typical directional post signs, as we had spoken to earlier. Directional wall signs. These are the technical details of how they're placed, the heights and such. So we can keep going, keep going, keep going. Nice shot of Goose Spit. Sign placement is just that. It's we've come up with areas that we feel are the most bang for the buck in terms of the locations of the signs, and we could cruise through these very quickly. This will all fall out in the placement plan post fabrication, of course. So we've got information contained on a number of the signs. This one, for example, if we could stop here just for a sec. Picks up the tot lot, and the tot lot, you can see the regulatory down the bottom, and then features park amenities, so children's play area. We also have a cue to, what else was there in there? Oh, the Frisbee disc golf course as well. So we can keep going. The marina, and so on and so forth. There are quite a few, the community center, Comox Golf Club. And then, of course, we have, maybe right to, keep going. These are all locations still. Go back one, please. This is an interesting one in terms of interpretive. Marina Park claimed from the sea. And it gives a really interesting, very snapshot kind of sense of place and how this was created and timelines. This is a mock-up that we worked on in concert with the Museum and Archives. So it gives you an idea. And one thing, and you can't pick it out very well here, but our interpretive signs all have a unique motif along the edges. in here. It's very hard to see, but that's a design element that's been built into the program to give it its sort of special finish. And it's key in terms of recognition, and it's a very, very nice pattern. So can we go through a little bit more? Oh, that's it. We're done. So the next thing we need to do is go into fabrication. And the fabrication process is fairly complex. It's going to take some time, but our hopes are to get some of the key indicators in the ground in August, if all things go according to plan. So it's been a long journey, and I think it was important to really spend the time to research it thoroughly, and that's my presentation.
Great, Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thanks, Al. This is an exciting project. As you know, I've been onto this for some time, and I think that this goes well beyond the scope of what I ever envisioned when it all started. But so you say we're going to start in August. My other question was to do with when we get to, say, McDonald Wood and we border on the regional district, because it would seem wrong to me to just kind of stop there when you've got a lot of trails that run through Croto Beach and up around the Spit, and that's, I mean, we kind of claim that as our own, even though it's in the regional district. Have we had some discussions with them to be able to continue this on, or at least not stop you right there and go, it all changes?
Yes, I've had discussions with Doug DeMarzo, my counterpart with the regional district, and these are loose conversations, basically informing him that we're looking at just that, at trying to meld our borders together in terms of points of interest and connectivity. So Doug and I have been in conversations regarding a number of things, this project and also the Lazo Foreshore Connection project, and there's a number of, the Dryden Road is another example of the CBRD and Town of Comox working together on future plans in terms of the community connectivity. And so yes, in saying that, it's not going to be just it dies here.
Right.
We can handle that probably most effectively through the post-style directional arrows to continue to here. We do have cues on the more regional mapping that incorporate areas like the Balmoral Beach and Goose Spit that are located on there. So that it'll be a blurred line.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you. I think this looks really exciting, actually, and I think it's going to be a real enhancement to our community. I know that you know what most people do when they come to the communities, they want to know where they can go for a walk, and this provides that in spades. So
we're hoping to catch people to think about staying overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Arnott, and then
Yeah, thanks, Al. It does look really good. I'd like to get a copy and present it to the BIA the next time I'm there.
Certainly.
One of the things I recall, a couple of years ago, we had some signs down at the marina, and I know the base had some as well, those wooden 6x6s. And I guess the type of plexiglass, the type of paper, it burnt it out. So we're aware of that, and we'll take measures that won't happen.
Yeah. Those are actually contained in when they were designed, they were contained in basically a frame, a glass frame with very little venting. That was a tourism related initiative throughout the whole valley. And there was a number of failures that were noted. Some were replaced, and we still have an open line of communication in terms of seeing that we have some of those retrofitted.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it was a design flaw.
Good. So we're past that.
We
Thanks.
are aware of that.
Okay.
Yes, thanks for your presentation. I echo the comments of Councillor Grant. Many of us for the last few years in council have been putting this as a priority on our town strategic plan, so it's really exciting that's coming to fruition. Just another point, if I could, is that step one is so important to get it going and to use our brand and our colors, and appreciative of that. I'm hoping down the road with step two it might be considered to open up to local art and artists, maybe incorporating youth in the projects and things like that, and not lose sight of that to enhance the creativity and the excitement and the talents in our community as well. But just a great, great start, and again, I'm so pleased to see it finally happening after a few terms that
Great.
put in our strategic plan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further, Councillor Gunn on this side?
Just a comment quickly. Congratulations, that's really well done now.
Thank you.
It's going to be so good for us. It brings to mind, too, our town's ambassadors. Now, as you say, you're hoping to get some of this out in August. Will there be some instruction for the ambassadors so they could draw attention to them as well?
If we can get these, what I'll call the key starter points in place, there's certainly an opportunity to do that. I think it makes perfect sense.
It would work so well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they should be included. If the ambassador program is going, if it's going to be around in future years, I think they need to be briefed and included. And yeah, I think it would be a wonderful idea. I think they need to have some buy-in as well. You're welcome.
Councillor Price.
Yes, and thank you, it's great. And I'm glad to hear you're working with the Comox Archives and Museum.
Yes.
Because I know the museum is also putting up signage to identify points of interest. So that's all being keyed in to the
Yes.
overall plan.
We'll be sharing the whole package with Museum and Archives staff as well. I'll be meeting with Trish to go over a number of things, and she's been very instrumental in helping us in terms of the research and development end.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you again for your presentation.
You're welcome, Your Worship.
All right, we'll move on to minutes and meetings. We have for approval the July 4th council meeting minutes. Second. On approval, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We have for receipt the manager report. Vote. Second. Receipt done. All in favor? Motion is carried. And of course, we just had a presentation on wayfinding. Don't know if any. There's nothing really else to report on any of those other items at this point.
She still has a question.
Well,
Not allowed.
It's about wayfinding.
no, it's not what we're finding.
Stormwater management.
Yes, I know we were waiting.
Anxiously
to hear
awaiting
from
your
McElhaney,
question.
and so I don't know if we have.
Yes, we have. What's happening right now is, of course, McElhaney as well is in staff holiday. So Bob Hudson's back. Looks like we're getting progress on the last of the technical issues. And this one is dealing with software. As the software gets updated in terms of which one they're going to actually start getting the reports and say this is the version they use. So our musical engineer's back on 7th. And so still hopefully be able to get that wrapped up by the end of August. So coming before the council in September.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, seeing nothing further on the manager's report, we'll move on to the annual report and staff receiving council's approval of that as contained in the agenda here. Move. Second. And that, of course, is the annual reporting requirements, summary of the goings on of the previous calendar year, and of course copies of updates of the scrap plan, as well as copies of the financial statements and statement of financial information. So it's all in one package that's required by the Local Government Act. So I don't know if there were any questions about it. It has been published, so just the approval. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Well done.
Yes, Twyla was instrumental in completing that document in the last few weeks, so kudos to her. New business. So, a couple items for direction being requested. First, we'll deal with the request regarding the golf course property and the possibility of that being a referendum question. So, there is no specific recommendation from the CAO on this. So, obviously, this is a council decision at this point whether or not, as per the request that the resident made, whether that question would appear on or not. If it was going to appear on a ballot, we would have to probably make that decision at tonight's meeting. Failing that, it would not appear on the ballot. Councillor Arnott?
Have we had any communications with the golf club?
No.
Richard had said that he was hoping that there would be someone reaching out. But
We have had surprisingly little communication from them, so I think just anecdotally there's been maybe a letter to the other here and there, and maybe a conversation, but
there's been nothing official between us.
I don't think they're that concerned because at least it's 15 years.
15 years, yeah.
Well, I guess I can tell you that I have had a bit of conversation with several of the golfers there. So we may have not approached them, but they have certainly approached me on this. They're of course concerned about what's going on here, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's 15 years out. I think it's way too early to be looking at something like this, although we do have a review of our official community plan coming up in the near future.
Yep.
And it might be something that we could deal with through that process rather than, if we were to do a referendum question today and it passed, you'd render them pretty much dead for the next 15 years. So I think there's a better process to shoring this up than through a referendum question.
Right.
That's my take.
Yeah, and certainly, I think a large majority of people would probably say yes to that, but not as many people put in the public golf as perhaps you might think. So I think the OCP review is a perfect place for that discussion to ensue. Councillor McKinnon.
Well, just to refresh our memory, perhaps I missed it, to put a non-binding question on, referendum on the ballot, how soon do we have to notify or get?
We'd have to decide that tonight, and then we'd have to engage in the election process, the communication process.
So tonight's tonight.
It is. In all practicality. Yes. Yeah, I mean, we don't meet again until September 5th. Kind of leaves it late.
Yeah.
So at this point, unless there's something specific that council wishes to include on the ballot regarding that matter, we'll just let it sit. There's no specific resolution required unless you want to give specific direction. All right, so the next one is the non-binding opinion question regarding the governance restructure study. So this comes out of the regional district through the city of Courtenay, and just by way of background, I'm sure many people are aware of what the Chamber of Commerce did over the last number of years, 4 or 5 years it took them to get a number of signatures. They went to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, seeking their support for governance review. And we got a letter back in January that said, thank you for your work. And Robinson said in this letter, as a next step and before considering funding such a review, I would look for municipal and regional district leadership in describing the scope, approach, and local management of the review. And also we look for consensus among the local governments on these details and a commitment to full participation in the planning, execution, and reporting of a review process. And of course, it would need to remain current, so if it was determined beforehand, before the elections, then it would have to be confirmed after those elections. And I did have a discussion shortly after that with Mayor Jangula, and he indicated that he would seek to put that question, or a kind of question on the ballot, which of course has resulted in what's happened at the regional district. And to my knowledge, the city of Courtenay has passed the motion to be put on the ballot, just the first part of it, not the second part, regarding funding. And the Village of Cumberland has decided that they do not wish to participate in that. So that's where it's at. Maybe turn it over to the RD directors here, starting with Councillor Grant to explain whys and wherefores.
Well, I think you pretty much hit it on the head, actually. I don't think there's much more to it than that. Okay. When I look at this, I think that I'm not 100% sure on this, what the objective at the end is. Like, what would you consider a win or a mandate to go forward? Mm-hmm. And the question doesn't really tell you that. I think that there's all sorts of different ways that you could restructure some of the governance that goes on. For instance, we're looking at a utilities commission at the regional district. That would be a different way of governing. And there's other ways of doing that. It might be putting certain services together, like recreation, rather than fully putting communities together. And I'm not 100% sure that this question is actually indicating that. And I'm still unsure as to how it would be that we would get a mandate to move forward with this. So, for example, is it 50% of the entire community, or 51%, or is it Comox, Courtenay, Cumberland, and what happens if Courtenay says yes and Comox says no, and you get a real uncertain ending the way this is done. So I think the information might be really good, and I think that if we could get this to the point where we get a better understanding of maybe other ways that governance might work
better than we're doing currently. That would be great information to have. I'm just not sure this question asks that. That's
Yeah, no, I mean, the challenge with this will be whatever the results are, it'll be a test of the pulse of the community in some respects. In 2014, various municipalities in the Capital Regional District went through various types of questions. They weren't all the same. And so the end result of that has been that Sandwich and Victoria are now looking at a more formalized process and actually spending money on it, up to $250,000 per jurisdiction. So, you know, the results of this will come out, assuming it gets put on the ballot for Comox. You get a sense of how interested Comox is in that. You would then have City of Courtenay people have their say at their ballot, and you would have what a result there. It's a little challenging to say how that would, it wouldn't really, obviously it doesn't bind anyone to do anything. It gives you a flavor and a sense. There will have to be some work done, I suppose, at the regional district level as to the meaning of all this, but that might have to happen after the fact. The other parallel or scenario that played out last election here was the homelessness question. Are you in favor of spending up to, I think it was 5 cents and so on, per whatever 1,000 it was to fund homelessness? Of course, we didn't put that on our ballot because we had already funds set aside for that. So whether you put it on the ballot or not doesn't probably really matter. You might even get the sense during the election campaign, for those running again and new people running, as to whether there is a desire for that, with or without this question. So, I mean, I don't see any harm in having the question on there, but it's not going to be the be-all and end-all as to the results.
well. The other question that I have on this too is with Cumberland not being out, and with the minister saying we want a approach from all government, does that kind of negate the whole process?
Well, Cumberland has generally not been part of previous amalgamation or restructure studies, so they kind of do their own thing, as you know, in many ways. So I don't think that really matters. When the study was done in the 1990s, it was for a core area, which was Courtenay, Cumberland, and some of the areas of the regional district outside of it. Cumberland wasn't even part of it, and may not ever be part of it. So I mean, I think you would go with whatever results you get and decide how far you want to pursue it, in whatever way you want to pursue it. So, I mean, it doesn't use the A word, which everyone, I suppose, in the town of Comox would be a little area. Policing costs and things like that being considered, debt, and taxes and all that. So there's no real pocketbook question here. It's more of a, how do you feel about it? Councillor Ryan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just reading our CAO's report here, and he has the question that I guess Victoria and Saanich used about are you in favor of spending X number of dollars for establishing a citizens' assembly to explore the cost benefits and disadvantages of amalgamation between the communities. So where would there be a cost if we were to establish that? We put notices out in the newspaper. We have a group of people that would explore those. It might take a year.
Well, they'd have to study roads, policing costs, all the issues around a restructure.
This would be like a volunteer group?
Well, it's not that they wouldn't cost anything, but
Right.
there'd be consultants engaged to, okay, well, if you take in this area, how much for the roads to be maintained that are in the rural area? How much policing costs are going to be impacted? And what kind of grants can you get for those things and where it goes? So, I mean, that question in Victoria and Saanich for this election is sort of a follow-up from the previous election when they had sort of already in favor of doing some sort of study. So it may be that this will test the temperature and it might go away. It might result in a more comprehensive study.
I like the idea of finding out from the community, because I know I had heard it when I was knocking on doors 4 years ago, and I'm sure I'll hear it again. And as Councillor Grant was saying, that what is it that we're looking for? I do think there's a need to find this out from the community. I don't know what the right question is.
Well, I don't think you'll ever get a perfect question until you get the question, are you in favor of amalgamating?
Yeah.
And put it
Because there's amalgamating, and as you said, there's services that could overlap.
Yes, and we of course do have the Comox Valley Regional District, which does provide a venue for shared services, which we engage with. But there's recreation departments there, there's recreation departments here and in Courtenay. So lo and behold, there's also things like fire departments. But careful what you wish for there.
Yeah, I think that was one stuff.
Well, just the cost of a full-time fire service might be something you want to take on.
Yeah.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, I find it, quite an ambiguous question too, and it's a big question. And I was involved last time when we were going through looking at restructuring, and it's a huge thing. It takes an incredible amount of time and costly. And I just wonder, and given that we've got out the starting gate, with Cumberland saying, do whatever you want, we don't want to be part of it, that rules out district municipality option, which is that's a biggie, and that has merits and demerits. And I personally am loath to go down this path. I mean, we are a community that actually is doing very well. We're debt-free, and I just think that there's only so much time and energy and money to put into things. And as I say, I remember last time it was huge undertaking. And last time too, it did look at all the options out there. It allowed that wider study, and it did come down to an amalgamation option that, as you know, Comox Courtney and Area B, which Comox people turned down at the time because, for many of the reasons, I think that they would probably find it's not to our advantage. The cost was the biggie, that it wasn't certainly not in our favour, the cost-wise. So it is very complex. It's always easy to say, oh, study, let's do a study. But it is a very complex issue, and I think that it sort of takes away from the focus too that there is so much we can do through the regional district, how we can work together. It's a vehicle that we can choose to keep our own individual identity and our individual way of doing things, and work together on the things that we share in common. So, I have given this a lot of thought, and you can say what's the harm in putting the question out there, but I think it's very complex, and so given the thought I put into it, I think I will be voting against going with this question. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough question that, without knowing the cost potentially of just doing the study, it could easily amount to $100,000 for each of the jurisdictions. So there's that. There's the reality that until our community reaches 15,000 in population, which hopefully is at least 5-10 years away, there's no real benefit to us, obviously joining up with another municipality to bump our population over that amount. And we know that the city of Courtney has been after us for a number of years to pay quote our fair share of policing costs. That's they go to UBCM every year with that in mind. So there's that aspect. There's the debt aspect which you referenced, and the reality of taking on perhaps rural roads which are below standards. So Point Homes area. I mean, all of that would be determined in the study. Now, are you in favor of conducting a study? I would think that at the very least there should be, if this question was going to go ahead, a dollar figure put in there. Are you in favor of the town spending up to X amount of dollars on conducting a study? And so that, that at least gives you at least some element of pocketbook, which would draw people's attention to it. Similar to what I said about the golf course last meeting. All well and good to say we turn that into a park, but what is the cost? Right, you're going to spend X amount of dollars more each year in maintenance to turn that into a park.
And I think there's a prematureness about this too. And the other one we haven't mentioned, the fire service. We are lucky in our communities that we have volunteer fire services, and once you get to a certain size, that's out the window. And the cost of having a full-time paid fire service, you look to Campbell River, is huge. So it's a simple question that, and so it's, it has a lot more complexity to it.
So we've heard, concerns from around the table around, what does this mean? What is the impact of a decision one way or other on this? If it passes in Courtney and it doesn't in Comox, or by what percentage? Those kinds of concerns, process related. What kind of governance are we talking about, perhaps, around to the actual dollar figures involved to do a study? And the province will assist, but they're not going to pay for it all. They want us to have some skin in the game, obviously. They've been down this road with Comox Valley before. So all of that, it could be put on the ballot as is, it could be referred back to the regional district for further discussion, it could be just dropped. So those are some options.
And so that feeds into my question. Again, do we have to have the wording tonight, or can we refer this back to regional districts so that way we can discuss it when we meet again in September and still have it on the ballot?
It's going to be tight. I'll say that.
Because I think it's important enough that we need to explore it a little bit more and put a dollar figure on it, and maybe
We do have our deputy returning officer here who's been madly putting together all sorts of information. Is there a deadline that you would be aware of that we could need to have this on the ballot by?
There is notification deadlines.
Yes.
And I'd have to look at the calendar in front of me again.
Right.
It would make things extremely tight.
Yeah.
Because you don't meet again until the 5th.
So we can have a special meeting.
Potentially, although the regional district won't meet now until whenever they meet. It probably, they would have a couple meetings in August, so that, it does make it tight, but, you could certainly ask that question. You could refer back to it.
Well, it would be interesting to know what the implications of Cumberland not being involved in as far as the ministry is concerned, because the whole thing may be moot if they want the entire valley involved in this, and one of the companies is already out.
Yeah, I understand why Mayor Jangula and the people in the regional district want to put this on a ballot at the time of election, because it is easier to do it at that time with little or no cost added to the question. There would still be a cost associated with explaining it and having some public information on it. If you don't have it on this year's election ballot, that doesn't mean you can't still pursue this issue in any way you see fit. And even in the minister's letter from January said that if a governance review of the Comox Valley is a priority of existing and new councils, then that would have to be in place before you get any funding from the province. So it doesn't mean that if you didn't have this on the ballot, that the new councils of whatever jurisdictions, and even including Cumberland for that matter, they could say, well, you know what, we want to get back into that discussion, without necessarily having a plebiscite. So, a plebiscite at some point or a binding referendum would be required to make any fundamental changes. But to test the public's opinion, yes, a plebiscite or non-binding question is one way of doing it, but there's many other ways of doing it.
Could we change the question here a little bit? So at the very end where it says, consider the feasibility and implications of restructure, could we change that somehow to say implications of different or better governance models? I think the restructure piece leads people to think amalgamation, and that's, I think, why Cumberland is probably out, because they call it the A word in Cumberland. So if we change that to make it a little bit more...
The city of Courtenay has
already passed this. All right.
Yeah, so that's what happened in Victoria, or the Capital Regional District, is you had all the different municipalities all coming with different wording.
Right.
And they got
14 different versions.
I think it was only clear in Oak Bay, for example, that they didn't want anything to do with it. So.
Well, I think this is a big enough and important enough issue that we want to get it right, and it needs to be really clear. And I don't think this tells the town. Also, you say it's non-binding, or it says it's non-binding, but you raise the level of expectations of people when you put something like that out there. And I think there's room for a lot of confusion, misunderstanding, expectations from people, and then when we don't do it, then what? So, I don't think I'm in favor of this, but I am in favor. I know people, at the end of the day, want good government run as efficiently as possible. And I think we can do that at the regional district level and continue to find ways of doing this. And perhaps this is an important enough issue that in the next election we can do it properly.
Well, and you look at the work that's being done now on the liquid waste management planning process, which could broaden the scope of what in the past has been just the sewer commission or the utilities commission, as you refer to. So that work's still ongoing.
Yeah. And we'll have more answers by then as well. So I feel like this is being rushed and it's too big.
All right, well, in terms of direction then, if you don't want to proceed with anything, we just leave it sit, or if you want specific questions asked of the regional district, we can do that.
Can I ask one more question, sir?
Right.
Because we need to redo our OCP in the fall, my desire is to engage the public as much as we can. Is this something that we could put out in through the OCP, engaging the public? What is your feel on this? So we're in effect, we're asking the public. I hope to get as many people engaged in that as possible.
I'll ask our acting CAO and planner.
Finally, you're on the spot.
OCP reviews and what the time frame and what the scope of that would be.
It would be difficult. There are two, if you're looking at governance, the details in terms of the different governance structures that are available. If you're looking at different service, different areas of service like sewer, water, you have the problems of, let's say that you're just looking at the regional district, Courtenay and Comox. Each one has a different current system. How would those tie in? Can they even tie in? And then you're also looking at possibly bringing in another alternative, saying, well, what if everybody switches over to this? It's a very complex question in terms of...
But this isn't even providing us that.
Well, and
these questions that they're giving us.
That is, but I'm saying that in terms of rolling that into an OCP, OCPs are typically about land use. What land use do you want? How are you going to service that? Not in terms of what governance structure. So typically the governance structure, the service delivery is done as a separate because it's so complex and so specific.
Yes, okay.
And the OCP review timing is what?
2020.
2020. 2020 vision.
Your Worship?
Yes, sir.
I'll just add my 2 cents worth if I can, is that I remember reading a letter to the editor of the Times Colonist from a taxpayer. And I think if you asked any taxpayer, they would probably be happy to have lower taxes and less cost with local government, any government for that matter. And this letter writer said, yes, initially he thought that amalgamation would lower costs, but looked into it more and found some studies that in fact said that it could be, it might not lower costs. In fact, it could be the opposite in many cases if you include shared services and some of the other things that were touched on here. And it really struck a chord with me because I think if we act on impulse rather than on research, that a wrong decision can be made. We might even use the example south of the border of the leader of the free world there acting on impulse and maybe not making the right decisions. Having said that,
I was waiting for someone to break trumpet.
Send it out as a Twitter question.
We're going to build a wall.
in any case, the end of this individual's letter was that after reading the research that they had a different feeling about amalgamation and thought that it's something to be avoided. And I think, having said that our taxpayers need more information about what are the implications of amalgamation, the cost, and also the spin-offs. Because one thing I know from knocking on doors, and Russ touched on that, is that people, sure, they want their taxes cut, but boy, once their services stop coming on a regular basis, they want those services back. So it's a two-way street.
And I think I can reflect on the stuff that's happened in the regional district over the last 15 years in terms of one big regional district, a smaller one now. Now I've heard that ESRB wants out of the waste management function. We had Cumberland withdraw from the economic development function. We had Hornby and Denman withdraw from the sports commission, and so on and so forth. There is flexibility built within all those structures to suit what the needs are at various points in time. And it's always going to be a challenge how you govern yourselves. So I guess at this table, we have a responsibility to reflect our residents' wishes and needs. And of course, during the election process, you'll hear more about that at all candidates' meetings and at the doors. So, it will still be an issue. It will remain an issue until such time as it's voted again. And one way or the other, it will come up as another issue again and again and again. So nothing wrong with saying no thank you at this point. If that's what council's desire is, we would just leave it. We wouldn't say anything more than that. I don't think we need a specific motion to that effect. That we're just not interested right now. If you wanted to wordsmith it or add more to it, then we'd have to refer that back to the regional district. So.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that it's so late in the game that this comes to us.
Well, especially since I talked to Mayor Jangle back in February, it should have happened then.
Well, because if we had some time to kind of rework this a little bit, then I think that it might be a question that I think there's some valuable information that could be gleaned out of this, and I think it would be really good to know that, but I don't see this as being the right question.
Well, I think if you asked our deputy corporate administrator, who's not here, she used to work at the ministry in Victoria, and I think they have a special room with a file called Comox Valley. It's never actually closed, but there's always an open file there, so it will remain open for consideration, discussion, and you'll hear more about it over the next number of months as the election proceeds. So. Thank you for that discussion.
Just a point of clarification, if we said no to the question, though, it was brought up earlier, I still believe, as do some council members, that the public has a right to ask these questions and bring it forward. Is the OCP the venue, then what is?
Well, it's just the normal process of dealing with constituents' issues, whether it's a sewage issue or a water issue or a police and fire issue or recreation issue, all these issues will come up. We do have a regional district, of course, that does many of those functions collaboratively, and that's the venue perhaps where some of that will happen. But it doesn't sound like it'll be on our ballot for this. And no, the OCP would not be till 2020, and no likelihood that would be a land use planning process. Do you want to receive? Well, we could ask for further information, but I think I'll leave that to the. Oh, okay. Oh, we did that. Okay. Yeah. And the regional district directors can go back to the regional district and say, this is what we just talked about at our table. So.
Well, I think too, as we get more into this Utilities Commission and really start digging into how that could possibly work, that will give us a whole lot more information on how a question like this might play out in the future, and see if there's any, learning by watching how that process goes might be a good way to do this.
All right, we'll see what happens. So we'll leave that as it is, and we receive both those questions for consideration, but they won't be on our ballots in all likelihood. So next item under new business is the loss of municipal officers' expense allowance. As you may have heard, the federal government is taking away the partial tax exemption, as outlined in the report from our Director of Finance. So up to this point in time, 1/3 of the information was deemed to be allowance for expenses. So that was exempt from tax. So as a result, and like many municipalities, staff have recommended some changes that would take effect in January 2019 to increase by the appropriate portion the remuneration as a result of that tax allowance being removed. So unless there's further questions, we can move the recommendations.
We'll move the recommendation.
Okay. And a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
And discussion. Councillor Switch.
Well, reading this report, I would be happier with the recommendation of the independent market review. We're overdue for it. We were supposed to have one back in 2011, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to do that. It's not going to impact our situation moving forward.
Well, we could do that separately from this other thing. I mean, the other thing is just reflecting the status quo and dealing with the tax exemption amount. But you could certainly do that market review independent from all that.
Yeah.
Because the market recommendation number 3 that you're looking at.
Well, I'm just thinking.
Option 3.
Option 3.
Leave it as it is at this moment, and asking for an independent market review.
All right. That could be done. We'd have to defeat this motion, and then another motion would have to be made. I mean, it's a good point. I understand that. I think timing-wise, it would be unlikely to have the results of that before the next election occurs, before this fall. And I would suggest to you that's probably something that you wouldn't hear back from until probably January. So the new council could deal with it then and make any investments accordingly.
I think that would be the appropriate way to go.
Yeah. So, anyway, further discussion? Yeah.
just for the public at large and perhaps people in the room here as well, could you put this issue in layman's terms, layperson's terms here? Because I'm sure people would not understand this and say...
I tried to do that in my intro, so let's try it.
So you're talking to your city planner, they don't know that language.
We're not going to let a planner and a lawyer. Currently, what it says...
This is a foreign language to some of us.
Currently, as it says in the bottom of page 87, 1/3 of whatever you get paid is deemed to be an allowance for expenses, meaning that is exempt from tax. So that's being taken away by the federal government, and for whatever reason, like many other municipalities, they are now taking the amount that would otherwise you'd have to pay in tax and adding that to your remuneration. Again, effective in 2019, because it's only for the 2019 and subsequent tax years. So that's what it does, and the dollar amounts are shown there, and the impact on the budget is shown there. For example, for the mayor's salary, it works out to $4,756. That's the value of the tax exemption. And for a councillor, it's $2,506. So those would simply be added for 2019 to the remuneration rates. That's what it proposed. And so that the mayor salary would then be $38,384, and the councillor salary would be $20,230. And the total impact is shown there, roughly under 160. So that's as basic as you can put it. The other question or concern that Councillor Swift has raised is why not just do the whole shebang and take into account all these things. We have, with the exception of 1 year, Councillor McKinnon, you may recall, we went to 0. 1 year we didn't increase, but to that point and after, we increased it by a formula. And we haven't done a market rate analysis for some time. It is always controversial, and you always end up voting on what you're going to pay yourself. But at this point, that may be something worth doing. My suggestion would be this: is that you pass this motion as is, and then, should you wish to pass another motion, then have a market review done, reflecting that reality, such that at least for the beginning of 2019, you know what you're going to do.
Because what we're doing here is putting ourselves back to the same position we are.
Yes.
We're operating.
Thank you for clarifying that, Your Worship. I think that's important because I'm not sure members of the public understood that.
Right, fair enough. Okay, so those are suggestions. There's a question on the floor. At this point, if you wanted to, Councillor Swift, make a motion, we'd have to defeat this one first, and or amend it to allow for a market review to be done as as a supplemental or a separate motion.
Well, can it be, but you're saying you would go ahead with the...
Well, if council passed this, that's one option,
Yeah.
or they could defeat it and then go with what your perhaps subsequent motion would be.
Or you could add to it. Right?
Or you could say, and also
review
do
it
this.
January as well.
Just amend it.
Or you could have a supplemental saying, yes, then amendment would take effect January 2019. However, we would want to do the market review. Because the market review is going to take several months. Particularly since all the municipalities are doing the same top-up. So you probably won't have
They just did that.
good stats until January, right? Because everything will be in a state of flux.
Well, I still think I'd like to defeat the motion. I'm not going to be...
Okay, all right. We'll see where it goes. Any further questions? If none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion as presented on the agenda? Hands, please. Just 2. Those opposed? Okay, it's defeated. So, over to you, Councillor Swift.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that staff be directed to engage an independent market review to see what appropriate salaries are.
And taking into account the changes to the tax rate
Yes.
portion of that.
In January.
In January.
Well, yeah. I mean, the market review could begin now, could it not?
Yeah, it would be subject to budget and the timing and
Yeah.
all that. And again, the staff's being, staff would take that direction and carry on.
Because the stats will change from now.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that's been seconded, and staff will carry on with that. Is that sufficient? Clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Still come to council for approval.
Ultimately, yes, but probably not for several months.
Just one.
To the new commission.
And
Which one? Sorry, choice.
Just clarification, you would be hiring a consultant to do that?
yes, independent market review, yeah, it's not internal. All right, so it would be a consultant that would be engaged to look at it, and not an advisory committee, that's the other way to go. To have a consultant do it, as we did a number of years ago. Chris Green and Associates, I think, did it. All right, so whoever it would be, staff would figure that out, and if they had any issues with that and the cost of it, they'd come back to us. All right, so all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you. There you go. Just being mindful of time, we have less than 10 minutes to go before the public hearing, and we'll have to adjourn next door. So we'll see what we can get to in the next few minutes, and then we'll have to adjourn this meeting. So we have the DVP application at 1759 Rob. The recommendation is to be issued subject to the conditions. Now, there was also a late item in that regard. Do we have to deal with that at the same time?
Yes, and if you agree with the amendment, then it would just simply be to pass those two motions, amending the...
So motion to receive the addendum report and the recommendation.
Okay, I'll move that we receive the addendum.
Second. And incorporate that recommendation.
And incorporate that recommendation.
Okay, all those in favor? And then on the main motion, be issued subject to those conditions.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none? All those in
So just,
favor? Yeah.
it sounded like one neighbour said no problem and another neighbour had concerns. I just wondered, have you any insights into, they seem to have some concerns about visibility, and none of that you felt was changed your recommendation?
No. If that was a road, if Megan Way was a road, the minimum exterior side yard setback would be 3.5 meters, and was proposed is in excess of that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I do have a quick question regarding that. So now, if this goes through, they have access through Megan Way. Is that area stratified? So now do they have to pay something towards the...
It's not stratified. Megan Way is
It's a private way.
It's part of the lot.
Okay.
So one of the lots, essentially a panhandle lot,
Right.
extends from the bottom of the cul-de-sac up to
Yeah.
the north.
Okay. So the town goes in there, cleans the snow, there's no charge, extra charge?
No, we don't do anything.
You don't do anything?
It's actually a private lot.
Right,
So
so
there
that's
has
what
to
I'm
be
saying.
there has to be an agreement between those property owners.
They look after their own maintenance.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So these people will be on the hook for whatever maintenance,
Oh, yeah.
because...
Whatever their current agreement is. Yeah,
Yes.
we're not a party to it.
Right,
Yeah.
because they wouldn't right now because they access off the property.
No, I don't know. I mean, again, that is something up to the property owner
Okay,
in terms
all right,
of how they're going to get access.
Okay.
What we do have is on lots in our 1.1 zone is a 7.5 meter front yard setback and a 3.5. So
Okay.
wherever we're looking at a corner lot, in terms of sight lines and other items, we have the standard of going down to a minimum of 3.5.
Right.
All right, so any further questions on that? Is everyone good on that? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We'll move on to DVP 18.5, which is 2137 Comox Avenue, and that is for the cell towers. Shadows. Any discussion?
Yeah, I've heard from a couple people in that area that they do not like those. You know, we've got not a very attractive hospital. Now we're going to exceed the height limitations that we currently have, putting towers, microwave dishes. The neighbors are concerned whether or not they sent something in. I asked them to, but they approached me. They've got concerns with that. The microwave issue, the sightline issue. So I'm not in favor of this. I think we need to have, if we're going to be doing these things, a dedicated area that is not on top of the hospital at the beginning, at the entrance to our community.
Fair enough. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Need to see hands. Thank you. All those opposed? One opposed. Thank you. For that, Councillor Arnott. Hopefully, as redevelopment proceeds at the hospital, they can find a more suitable place for it. Okay, so we are now at 5 minutes to, so we're going to take a brief, let's see how brief a break it's going to be, but we'll adjourn the meeting for now, and we'll come back to the much anticipated liquor license and cannabis stuff. Now, the question though on cannabis, is it okay that we put that on, carry on with that after, that's for the business license aspect, it's okay to carry on with that after the public hearing? Yes. Okay, I just wanted to check that. All right, so the meeting will convene in the Stair Center next door at 7 o'clock for the public hearing, and we'll come back here when we're done with that.
So there would be no way of putting all three of these liquor things together and passing them before that?
No.
I didn't think there would be, but
We are at item F of new business, which is the liquor primary application from the Legion. And as you may recall, the process involves staff being directed to gather the views of residents on that application by placing a newspaper notice and mail it to properties within 75 meters. So I'll move that.
second.
Okay, and further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. So that will ensue over the next number of weeks. I'm assuming the usual process is, what, roughly a month, 6 weeks?
Yes, we expect to have a report back for the September 5th.
Okay, so September 5th, great. All right, so that's passed. And the recreational cannabis retail procedures business license, to receive that report for information.
Move proceed.
Second. Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried. So that was just more for information as to how the business licensing would go. All right. And then we'll move on to the next item, which
24, you got three.
H. H, under the letter H. All right, so this is for Blandon Sea Brewery, and that's again to engage the public in gathering reviews, etc.
I'll move the recommendation.
Second. All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried again. By September 5th, we'll have that back. All right.
I'll move the next recommendation. Is it second?
Second.
That's for the new traditions one.
Yeah, I'd just like to say
Yes, please.
that I think this is great. We've gone from a nearly dry town to three applications in one meeting, and I know that at the last election, a number of people said the town needs to be livened up.
Yeah.
We moved downtown to be able to go out, and there's limited places to go, so they'll be very happy also.
You'll actually be able to bar hop in Como.
Yes.
All right, do we vote on that one?
No.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. Yes, that along with the groundbreaking that's gone on the Church Street site is moving on. So good stuff. Congratulations to all the proponents and good luck on the rest of the process.
Pub crawl and actually go.
Well, and there's the new social room down right beside Toscano, which is a nice little venue as well. So things are really moving along.
All right, moving on to item J, which is the Regional Organics Composting Facility, and staff have provided a recommendation that we provide conditional support subject under option F, subject to a detailed cost comparative analysis being completed, etc.
I'll move the recommendation.
Discussion, Councilor Price.
And I think given that Strathcona Regional District is talking about pulling out of the whole service, is that that's a complexity in all this, so this certainly makes a lot of sense.
This,
Cautious approach. All right. Go
So,
ahead.
in the event that we find out that it's cheaper to actually not truck our garbage all the way to Campbell River, and we decide that we don't like that, what happens?
I guess further things will come back to council at that time to figure out how we're going to do it.
But does it not just go to the regional district board and they can just put it through regardless of what we think?
There is a voting aspect in that, I get that, but I think we always have the ability to, at some point, consider an opt-out. I'm not sure how that will work. Currently, we're under that pilot project.
seems reasonable to me that if we produce more garbage than Campbell River does, and the facility was here, it would be cheaper than taking it all the way down there. It seems obvious.
Yeah, you're referencing garbage as an entirety, you mean, as the yard.
Yeah, that's what I mean, sorry, yeah.
Yes, hopefully some more analysis will be done. All right, so all those in favor then? Opposed, motion's carried. And then we get to correspondence, so we have a letter here regarding the golf course, so motion to receive
Move
that.
receipt.
Second. All in favor? Motion's carried. And then we have a letter from the province regarding child care spaces funding announcement, just for receipts.
Move receipt.
All in favor?
I did speak with a child care person here in town, and apparently they have about $1 million that you could get your hands on if you were to put, if you were to put the land up, they could build a building and we could have that. Our conundrum here, of course, is we don't have land, but they may be coming to see us in the September meeting just to give us a better explanation.
Good. Yeah, I mean, there may be facilities like the old Comoxels pool site, for example, could be an option, or perhaps even versions of St. Joe's. All right, also a letter from the Ministry of Housing and Social Development on the homelessness count.
Move receipt.
Second. All in favor? Motion's carried. Of course, this is a Comox Valley report, 117 total homeless. Doesn't specify what parts of the Comox Valley, but obviously it's an issue that is being addressed at the community level. So that's all in favor of receiving that. Carried, and then we have a letter of thanks from the Great Canadian Cleanup.
Move receipt.
Second. All in favor? Motion's carried. And a letter which we get every year on this time, which is the gas tax agreement community works fund payments.
Move receipt. Second.
And just to, so you're aware, this is already factored into our budget, so it's not new money.
Already spent.
All in favor? Motion's carried. And a letter regarding the variance application, which we already dealt with.
Move receipt.
Second. Motion's carried. All those in favor, sorry.
Now move receipt of the next one, too.
Second. Right. All those in favor? Motion's carried. And lastly, the initiation of the Regional Growth Strategy bylaw. And so motion to receive that, or just for information.
I will move receipt.
And I think you wanted to say something about it?
I could do that now or under council reports.
We'll do it under this.
Okay, so if you can bring up the chart now, just kind of explain what's happened on 3Ls. I know it's been getting a lot of social media attention lately, and so I think that it's been quite confusing. I know I was quite confused. So the basis of this letter, every regional growth strategy in the province, you can only make an amendment if you're a local government, a municipality, or a regional district. Ours is different. So out at Stoughton Falls, the proponent made the application some years ago to start a growth node out in that area. The regional district of the day said no. He took that to court and was found that he was, in actual fact, able to make an amendment to the regional growth strategy. And it was different than everybody else's, and we were in error, or the regional district at the time was in error by not allowing him to apply. So that's how we got to where we were today. So this amendment is to change this back so that our regional growth strategy will be like everybody else's. In other words, they would have to get the city of Courtenay or the village of Cumberland or the town of Comox or the regional district to bring this as an amendment to the regional growth strategy. That was a flaw when our regional growth strategy was put together. When the lawsuit was brought, they won the ability to do that. What we got out of the court case was they showed us how to fix that. So that's what happened there. So as we fast forward to a couple of weeks ago when this first came to the regional district, the application came in. Our choice at that time was to decide whether this was a minor amendment or a standard amendment. And what we were amending was to say, do we want a growth node out in that area No, sorry, that's incorrect. What we did there was we said, which way would we like this application to go? Through the minor amendment process or through the standard amendment
Well, we
process?
started by saying, did we want to entertain an amendment? So we approved
Yes.
that we would, not that we would approve an amendment, but we would go into the process of looking at
Correct.
should it be amended.
Correct, and how we would do that. So on the first one, the regional district sent this out, and they had only areas A, B, and C voting on this. So that, about 5 minutes before the meeting, was changed because they realized that it was everybody that was supposed to vote on it. And so that came as a bit of a surprise to some of us. If you could just roll that up just a little bit farther. So as we look at this, you can see that it has the minor amendment. To go to a minor amendment, you need a 2/3 majority to get it past the board. As you go down past first reading and the consultation thing, you'll see, I can't do that very well. It's, in the one that we had, it said you needed a unanimous vote of the board to continue beyond that point. Well, that rendered the minor amendment process kind of useless, because if you didn't get a majority to start with, you certainly weren't going to get a majority farther down the road. If the minor amendment was turned down, it automatically went to a standard amendment, which meant you started at the top and went through the whole process. So it actually took longer rather than shorter. So that was voted on at that meeting. It turned out at that meeting that they actually had that incorrect, and it was not a unanimous vote that you needed down here, but just a majority. So they had another meeting, and we re-looked at the entire issue again. At that meeting, as we look down, you see that there's consultation, first reading and consultation. We can set any consultation plan that we want. I think in this case it should be very rigorous and it should be very robust. We looked at this, and as we got down, you'll also notice over on the standard amendment under second reading, now you send it out to the local governments. Local governments meaning the regional district of Nanaimo, Port Alberni, Campbell River, and Powell River, and all the local governments here. As we go a little bit farther, you'll notice that if one of those local governments doesn't accept that, then it gets sent down to Victoria for resolution in Victoria. And that's where the problem lay in the standard amendment process. We could have the city of Powell River dictating the terms of our community, and that's where we had a problem. So we voted to send this through a minor amendment, making that consultation process really robust. And if you really look at these, you can actually do all the same things, except you don't have to send it out to those faraway governments that really don't affect what we're trying to do. So that failed.
Well, another complication was that to be a minor amendment, you have to have 2/3 support. And so initially, at the committee of the whole, that 2/3 was applied. However, strictly speaking, at the committee, it's a simple majority, and it's only when you get to the board, the 2/3 that kicks in. So that's why one day it was that it had failed because it didn't get the 2/3, and then that was reversed because it did get a simple majority. And so I think in all fairness too, this is the first time that that it has been looked at and the mechanics of how it works. So I think there's been a very steep learning curve.
Yeah, so at that meeting, it was a 5-3 vote to send it through the minor process, which they said doesn't qualify because it's not 2/3. But it turns out you didn't need 2/3, we were only moving it along. So that was an error as well. So then when we got to the next meeting, we had 12 delegations at that meeting. The discussion went on, and it ended up going through the standard amendment process.
The minor amendment was voted down.
Pardon me?
The minor amendment resolution didn't pass.
Didn't pass, that's correct. So it ended up going through the standard amendment process, and that's where it sits today.
So that's why they've given us notice of it, and then basically from this point forward, the regional district, I guess, adopts their consultation plan and deals with first readings, public hearings, and on it goes.
That's exactly how it is. Now, what you're seeing on social media, and I'm seeing a lot of it, is have we saved Stocum Falls? Everything's good now. Or how can you allow this to go on? We're simply saying which avenue the application can go through. So there is no, haven't even seen the plan, no idea what they're doing out there. We're simply saying it's going through as a standard amendment.
Right.
So there's been no decisions on Stocum Falls or anything of that nature.
Amended or
Yeah.
not. And then if it were to be amended, then there would be the whole process that would go through the planning department at the regional district that would look at what would it look like. So this is just really to determine if the regional growth strategy is going to be amended or not.
Yeah, that's all we were doing.
All right, so they're just
Saying
telling
which
us,
avenue to go through with your application.
so they're telling us this will be a standard amendment process and further details to follow as to consultation.
Which in effect, if this was to go through, it could save Stoughton Falls for forever. I mean,
Well,
you know, if
Well, not at this stage.
no, but if this
Yeah.
whole process went through.
So now, apparently, as we go down the standard amendment and we get to that stage where it goes to the other governments, there's other regional growth strategies that are having this exact same problem and debate. You imagine Victoria, Capital Regional District, 14 municipalities.
Yeah, they've had that problem.
They've had that problem. And then it goes to Victoria, and then who knows where it goes from
They had an
there. So-
arbitration, I think, in Victoria.
Yeah, so I think there's kind of flaws that need to be straightened out in the
At the
system on both
provincial
sides,
level.
at a provincial level. And so that was, but just so you know, that's the debate, and nothing has been decided.
More of a process.
It's just a process, that's exactly right. So,
But we
anyway.
also, with our regional growth strategy, are simplifying it and putting it in line, moving through that process and putting it in line with other ones.
Personally, I think that we should just have one process. I don't know why, I don't think we need,
Yeah.
the choice just becomes a problem.
Yeah, it's historical as to why that process is there, being involved in that at the time. I think it was designed for minor amendments, more for technical wording changes.
Yeah, yeah.
The standard amendment was to apply to anything else, particularly of regional significance like this.
Yes.
A lot of the people that were speaking to that, I heard some of those delegations, I was sitting in the audience, that
Yes.
was around lot supply, affordable housing, all those things, which will of course come out further detail and further in the public
Yeah.
process. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I just ask a question
Yes,
about,
you
I'm not sure why Powell River, Port Alberni and so on would be considered the governments that would be affected by our regional growth.
That is part of the provincial mandate with their growth
So then
strategy
maybe
act.
that,
They say that with the approval of any growth strategy for a regional district or any amendments, standard amendments to it, have to be, that consultation has to happen. And I think that the province, I would hope, is revisiting that aspect. I don't think it's normally a problem because it's almost a formality, you send it out and no comment comes back. But I think that the province, certainly need to, and I think they're hearing that message, is revisit that aspect.
Apparently it's going to come up at UBCM as a resolution. So there you are. So that's what's going on now.
Thank you. So anything else on that? If not, we'll vote on receipt. All in favor? Motion's carried. And we've already received the late items, so we won't deal with that. However, that brings us to reports from members of council. So we'll start with Councillor Kingrant.
So I attended the regional growth, or the regional growth, sounded like a regional growth meeting, the regional district meeting, where we passed the benefits package as we had tonight. They actually did bring in a consultant to give us their thoughts on it, and then it was passed right there at the meeting. We also proceeded with the building, the new building, as we went back to the contractor and got the building within budget, so we approved that. And I also attended the 3Ls, about 4 of those meetings. So that's what I think we explained that already, so it should be good to go.
Councillor Arnott?
Yeah, briefly, I attended the Pride flag raising, what is that, about a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago? And I did actually attend the regional district meeting when they talked about that, and I can see how it was confusing to everybody. But it was an interesting process to see how the regional district worked on that. So that's all I have to add.
Okay. Councillor Swift?
I attended the community engagement session for the 67 potlatch. I attended the Filbert board meeting, their regular meeting, and of course they're getting geared up for the festival. And the Filbert volunteer dinner, which is an appreciation for the volunteers that will be working at the festival. So, and that's my report.
Councillor Price?
Yes, I also attended the 67 potlatch community meeting, and it was very well, it was a wonderful ceremony. And also the regional district committee of the whole, and we have the second one, as Councillor Grant has said, 3L has to be dealt with separately because of the different players who are at the table. So we had a cow for 3L and a cow for the regional district, and also an RD board and a 3L board meeting, and water committee, and also the raising of the pride flag.
Right up. Councillor McKenna?
That's just two quick updates. I attended the Homeless Coalition meeting last week, and they're working to achieving their goals of their 5-year plan, and attended the Community Justice Forum, pinch hitting for Councillor Arnott, and two events that are upcoming for them is Thursday, September 27th, they'll have the Iona Campanola dinner and lecture series, and on October 14th, the Restorative Justice volunteer recognition dinner coming up.
Councillor Grant?
Thank you. I too attended the potlatch 67. I was very impressed with that. It was an interesting way for them to tell their story. These dance and stories and song. It was most impressive. And also I took a bike tour to celebrate the agriculture in our community. It was excellent. I know a lot more about the farms and a very special restaurant. Great way to celebrate our community.
And just before we move off with the potlatch too, I had the pleasure of accepting on behalf of the town the gift. It's a scarf, and it's a commemorative piece about the potlatch. And I was thinking that we could have these items displayed in the museum in the case that we have there, and they are very willing.
Perfect.
And the little canoe that we received. So if that is the will of council, that will
Make it so.
go that way. Thank you.
All right, Your Worship, I'd be remiss if I didn't say the guest speaker at the Iona Campanola dinner this year is a Comox Valley resident who is our Minister of Justice.
She went to Highland School, yes. Jody Ray Wilson. Good stuff. All right, I'll just report on a few things. Since our last meeting, I met along with the CAO with representatives of the St. Joe's and also the Planner was there. Hospital, of course, you heard in the news recently that they've got some extended care patients moving back there from the new hospital into the 3rd floor. And so they're hopeful to be able to provide those beds in the near future, 21 beds plus 3 respite beds. Take the load off some of the stuff that's going on at the hospital. And of course, they'll be carrying on with their further partnership discussions and in response to the RFP. Hopefully that result will be announced sometime at the beginning of August. Health for the additional beds. There was a change of command at HMCS Quadra, and I attended that parade on 14th. Martin Packer is retired, and the new Army guy is taking over there, which is kind of different. But an Army cadet, our officer, will be in charge of Quadra. RCMP Inspector Walton is leaving, as you know, and we had the opportunity to interview Mr. Berbers. It's been reported on the paper today. And it was a rather quick process. A fellow who was available readily to this job, and his references all checked out. I did speak to Mayor Lori Ackerman from Fort St. John, and she had good things to say about him. And essentially, between myself and the other mayors, we said, look, we know there's another process there sometimes where you interview other candidates, but we understand that that's not happening this time, and based on, I guess, the fact that we're essentially sole sourcing this, we feel relatively comfortable with it, but ultimately it's the superintendent's decision anyway. So he'll be moving to town here shortly, and we'll be getting involved in community affairs, and I did emphasize our desire to have the inspector come here on a regular basis, so some of the other concerns within our community. So sorry we couldn't involve more of you in that, but it was a very quick process, and we did what we could. Had a coffee with the, so far, one declared candidate for mayor, so met with him and talked to him about our strat plan and our community plan and our financial plan to give him some more information. Attended both the events at Potlatch 67, 67, by flag raising, the first of several graduation parades for the cadets advanced aviation course, and the Comox Valley Classic Car opening ceremony last Sunday morning. And today, much of my day seemed to be spent dealing with a whale in the water and fireworks. And so there's been a lot of concern expressed by one watchdog group around that. Suggestions made that we relocate the fireworks and so on. Our staff have been in contact with DFO, and we will certainly follow their directions in that regard. So at this point, it's all systems go, and we'll know more perhaps in the next couple of days if any adjustments need to be made in terms of boats on the water, which could be dealt with by the Coast Guard, I suppose, as you indicated earlier. So yeah, it was entertaining to say the least. Lots of people out there on the boardwalk. I took a walk down there this afternoon, and a lot of excitement, some great photos that people were getting. So
Better than Pokemon.
yes, indeed.
Brought them all out.
So we have a busy weekend this weekend. Hopefully we can carry on as planned for all those different events and activities on the water and on the land. So we'll know more, I suppose, in the next couple of days, and we'll keep you in touch by email.
Just one last thing for me is Regional District has just hired a new General Manager of Planning and Development Services, Scott Smith from Port Alberni. Yeah.
All right, so those are the reports, I do believe, that we have. Any media questions this time, or are you going to do it after?
In regards to the fireworks, is it basically status quo?
For now it is, yeah.
So everything's basically all...
Subject to DFO's directions in that regard, which we could receive over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we're not making any changes unless and until we have to. It may be that we might have to move the barge to a different location or make sure that boats are out there. The main concern is about boats on the water.
We'll have a whale of a time.
That's it.
I was waiting for us.
Yeah, something was coming.
I was fishing for Ken to say something.
All right, any questions from the public that are still here? No. Okay. All right, we do have an in-camera meeting tonight, so we'll exclude the public under sections 91A and 2D of the community charter. Motion to that effect? We'll adjourn, and we'll adjourn for a few minutes while we're